What would you do if the person you trusted most was secretly preparing to destroy your entire life? Not out of anger, but with the cold precision of a chess master. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about deception, strategy, and one man's journey from betrayal to absolute control. And trust me, you won't believe how it ends. We were married 12 years. 12. That number hits differently when you're standing in an empty kitchen at midnight, staring at a bottle of wine she half drank 2 days ago, trying to remember the last time she looked at you like she used to. I remember our wedding night more clearly than our last conversation. I guess that's what happens when someone slowly, methodically drifts away. It's never a clean break, just a quiet erosion. Her name's Lauren. Or was, depending on how you look at it now. We met in grad school. She was brilliant, marketing whiz, sharp-witted, driven. I was quieter. Tech nerd, doing back-end work for a software startup no one believed in back then. She liked that I was grounded. I liked that she could command a room. It worked. We built a life. A nice one. Townhouse in the suburbs, matching mugs, soft couch she picked out, a dog we called Finn, dual incomes, Sunday brunch rituals, inside jokes about her boss. We were that couple. Stable. Trustworthy. Or so I thought. The changes were small at first. That's how betrayal always starts, doesn't it? Not with fireworks, with silence. She started working late. Too late. Every week she had a campaign deadline. She took her phone everywhere, even the bathroom. We stopped eating dinner together. She stopped asking about my day. Intimacy? Gone. At first, I blamed stress. Then myself. Then I started noticing things I couldn't unsee. One night, I caught her smiling at her phone while brushing her teeth. Just a little smirk. She never used to text that much after hours. I casually asked who it was. Amanda, she said. A coworker. She tossed the phone face down on the counter and changed the subject. I didn't press. Not yet. But something twisted in my gut. Over the next few weeks, I noticed the subtle flickers, new lingerie I'd never seen on me, perfume she didn't wear for me, late-night showers, giggles in the hallway when she thought I was asleep. My brain screamed at me to confront her. But I didn't. Because I needed to be sure. Because I didn't want this to be paranoia. And maybe, just maybe, a part of me hoped I was wrong. I started documenting. Notes in a private journal, timestamps of her comings and goings, phone bill anomalies, random Instagram posts she liked, anything. It felt dirty, obsessive, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't unsee her drift. Then one Friday afternoon, I made my move. I cloned her phone using a backup app she didn't know I'd set up. I had access to everything. Texts, DMs, emails, photos. I spent 3 hours alone in my car, just reading. Her texts to Daniel, I later learned, were a punch to the gut I still haven't fully recovered from. You make me feel alive again. He doesn't even notice. I think I could tell him, and he'd still apologize for being boring. Once the money's squared away, I'll be free. She was planning her exit. Strategically. She knew about our shared savings, my 401k, the equity in our house. She was playing the long game, waiting until she could hit the kill switch without losing the spoils. I went numb. It wasn't just cheating. It was betrayal wrapped in calculation. She didn't want a new life, she wanted mine, just without me in it. And that's when something inside me broke, or maybe clicked. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to give her exactly what she wanted. The shock wore off quicker than I expected. I think part of me had known for months, maybe even years, that something was off. That the woman I married had been slowly hollowing out her side of the relationship like termites in the beams of our home. By the time I saw her text to Daniel, it was like the final click of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. I didn't spiral. I strategized. I spent 2 days barely speaking to her, pretending to be deep in a project for work. She didn't notice. Or maybe she was just relieved I wasn't asking questions. Either way, it gave me space to breathe. I needed to find a way to give her exactly what she wanted and still walk away the one holding the match, not the ashes. The plan started with building a believable financial facade. I'd been responsible with money, too responsible, as Lauren would say. She hated that I had spreadsheets for our savings goals, that I always insisted on tracking everything. Now, I was going to make that neurosis my weapon. Step 1. Fabricate a double life. Not an affair, that would be too easy to disprove. I needed something shady, something plausible enough to scare her, to push her into making the first move, and dumb enough that she'd believe I was capable of it. So, I created a trail of bad financial decisions. I set up fake email accounts tied to foreign investment newsletters. I staged late-night phone calls with offshore contacts, made sure she overheard vague words like conversion, wallets, private, and they won't trace it. I left my laptop open on purpose, showing poorly designed crypto trading platforms filled with random transactions, screenshots of made-up losses, and a spreadsheet titled Liquidation Strategy. She didn't ask a single question. She just watched. A week later, I caught her on the back porch, whispering to someone, probably Daniel. Her voice was low, tense. I didn't need to hear the words. I knew the tone, urgency. I was baiting her, and she was taking it. I even started getting fake mail sent to the house, generic cryptocurrency portfolio alerts, and shiny envelopes. She opened them. I saw the torn edge. That was confirmation enough. The more she thought I was spiraling, the more confident I became. But then, I overreached. I had the bright idea of sending a wire transfer from one of our joint accounts to a fake company I'd set up, just a small amount, something I could reroute and return later. I thought it would cement the illusion, show her the money was truly vanishing, push her to confront me. Only, I used the wrong account. Instead of the decoy savings account I'd created in my name alone, I mistakenly wired it from our actual emergency fund, the one tied to our mortgage payments. Worse, the bank flagged it as suspicious due to the odd recipient name and international routing code. They froze the account and, per protocol, called her to confirm. I came home that night to find Lauren sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and a look I hadn't seen in years, cold, calculating, and amused. "You want to tell me why the bank thinks you're laundering money?" she asked, swirling the wine like we were characters in a noir film. I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Don't insult me." She leaned forward. "A wire to some shady company in Malta? From our joint account? You didn't even try to cover your tracks." That part stung. I had tried, but not enough, apparently. I played it off, acting flustered, embarrassed. "It's a side project. I thought I could flip some assets. I didn't want to tell you until it worked." She shook her head and smiled, the kind of smile that lets you know you're already under the microscope. "You've been weird lately. Secretive. Now I know why." I felt the trap reverse in real time. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to fall for the performance, panic, and file first. Not catch on. Not corner me. She got up, kissed me on the cheek, cold lips, no warmth, and said, "Be careful, love. You're not as good at lying as you think." I stood there, alone in our kitchen again, staring at her empty glass. Except this time, the wine wasn't half drunk, it was drained. She was moving faster than I thought. And now she suspected something. Maybe not the full truth, but enough to make her dangerous. I had to recalibrate fast. Because if I didn't regain control of this game, I wasn't just going to lose my marriage. I was going to lose everything. For 2 days, the house felt radioactive. Lauren wasn't outright hostile, but the way she watched me had changed. Measured. Calculated. She caught the scent of something bigger than a failed crypto scheme, and it scared me. Not because I'd done anything illegal, I hadn't, but because perception was everything. If she convinced the right people that I was unstable or untrustworthy, she'd own the narrative. The house. The money. My name. The plan I'd spent weeks building was suddenly hanging by a thread. And then, the universe handed me a lifeline. It started with an email, one I almost deleted, thinking it was spam. Subject: Claim Verification, Summit Holdings. At first, I thought it was junk, another phishing attempt. But something about it caught my eye. The sender was real. A law firm in Boston handling the liquidation of a shell company that, apparently, I had unknowingly invested in during a microcap fund years ago. A friend had roped me into it back in 2017, claiming it was the next big thing. I'd forgotten all about it. Turns out, it folded quietly last year, but there was still a small payout due to former stakeholders. The check? $8,300. Not a fortune, but proof. Proof of an actual, legitimate financial windfall from a now-defunct offshore investment. All above board. All verifiable. Suddenly, my sketchy trading behavior looked less like a meltdown and more like a misunderstood win. The second coincidence hit even harder, and I swear I couldn't have planned it if I tried. Lauren's company was hosting a quarterly retreat. I only knew about it because she left the itinerary on the dining table. It was 3 days at a lakeside resort, the perfect place for bonding, team visioning, and apparently, sleeping with your coworker in secret, which meant she'd be gone for 72 hours. Alone. Accessible. Vulnerable. It was a window I hadn't expected, but I sure as hell wasn't going to waste it. I spent the next day putting the rest of my plan into motion. First, I quietly met with my attorney and handed over every shred of evidence I had, the text backups, timestamps, bank statements, and yes, even the new check from Summit Holdings. He chuckled when I showed him the payout. "It's like the universe tied your shoes for you," he said. Next, I visited the bank and opened a new account in the name of a trust I'd set up 6 months earlier, something I'd intended for long-term tax shielding. But now, it would serve as my fortress. I began funneling my assets into it. Legally. Carefully. On the second day of her retreat, I returned home to find Lauren had left her iPad on the nightstand, unlocked. And that's when I found the jackpot. A synced message thread between her and Daniel. I hadn't seen this one before. It was cleaner than her phone, like she'd been trying to keep it out of sight. "We'll wait until next month. He's slipping. Once he moves the rest of the money, we file and call it. I'll take the house. You move in. Easy. He's been weird lately. Might be hiding more than I thought. Could be crypto. Could be worse. But he won't see it coming. He thinks I'm dumb." The audacity nearly made me laugh. She thought she was writing the story. She had no idea I'd already turned the page. I screenshotted everything, saved it to a cloud folder tied to my legal counsel, and deleted the evidence from the iPad. But I made one change. Just one. I sent a single message from Lauren's account, short and vague. "Something's wrong. He might know." Then I logged out. By the time Lauren got home from the retreat, Daniel was panicking. I knew because he called her 5 times during dinner. She kept silencing it, her eyes flicking toward me every few minutes, studying me like a predator unsure if its prey just turned into a threat. She didn't say a word about the bank incident. She didn't mention the crypto. She just watched. That night, she showered early, put on her softest nightgown, and curled up next to me with a tenderness I hadn't seen in months. "Missed you," she whispered. I kissed her forehead and waited. The bait was back on the hook, and this time, she bit harder than before. There's a certain thrill that comes with control, not the power trip, but the precision. The knowledge that every variable has been measured, every move anticipated, every weakness accounted for. That's how I felt in the days after Lauren returned from her retreat. Like I had checkmated her, and she hadn't even realized the game had started. She was cautious around me, yes, but not suspicious. More performative. She smiled more. Asked about my day. Even cooked dinner twice, which she hadn't done in almost a year. I recognized it for what it was, appeasement. She thought I was unstable, erratic, financially reckless. She wanted to keep me calm until she made her exit, until she believed I'd hung myself with my own rope. But I had already slipped free. The money was secure. The trust was airtight. My lawyer had the full dossier, including the new thread from Daniel. I'd even set up a second meeting with a financial advisor to restructure our joint assets under the guise of damage control. Everything I did looked exactly like the desperate flailing of a man in over his head, which meant she was no longer preparing to destroy me. She was waiting to collect the remains. It was perfect. Until it wasn't. It started with something small. A manila envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. No return address. Just my name, in neat block letters. Inside, 3 printed photos. Surveillance style. Blurry, but unmistakable. Me entering the downtown bank. Me in the conference room with my lawyer. Me handing over documents. No captions. No threats. Just the photos. I looked up, scanning the street. Nothing. No tail, no cameras. No movement. A message then. But from who? That night, Lauren was uncharacteristically affectionate. She wore the silk robe she used to only bring out on vacations. Ran her fingers through my hair while I pretended to read. "Things feel better," she said softly. Like, maybe we're getting back to us. The words chilled me more than the envelope. She had never wanted us. Not for years. She'd pulled away long before Daniel. Her affection now wasn't reconciliation. It was choreography. I started noticing more. She stopped locking her phone. Deliberately left it face up, like a magician showing an empty hand before the trick. Her messages with Daniel? Suspiciously clean. Too clean. It was like she wanted me to find them, to look and find nothing. She brought up couples counseling out of nowhere. Said it was time to repair, not run. Even suggested we take a weekend away, the same woman who once said 2 nights at a cabin was a waste of PTO. It was too much. Too sudden. Too controlled. Still, I convinced myself she was scrambling. That she sensed her grip slipping and was clawing to regain control. But then, the second crack. I went to access the trust account to finalize a transfer, a routine move, and it was frozen. Temporarily, yes. Routine audit, the bank rep said. Unusual third-party inquiries. They couldn't say more. My blood ran cold. I hadn't authorized any inquiries. Someone had. Someone who knew exactly where to look. I called my attorney. He was calm, but concerned. Could be coincidence. Could be pushback from the earlier transfer. But I'll dig. 2 hours later, he called back. "I don't want to alarm you," he said, which is exactly how people start sentences when they do want to alarm you. But there's a pattern. Someone's been pulling public records. Quietly. Strategically. Bank registrations. Property records. Even legal firm affiliations. "Lauren?" I asked, though I already knew. Can't say for sure. But it's someone smart. Someone methodical. They're not tripping any alerts because they're not touching anything directly. Just gathering. That night, I lay awake listening to the sound of her breathing beside me. Even. Calm. Controlled. Not a woman on the edge. A woman on script. And for the first time since this all began, I realized she might have seen the board long before I made my first move. If you think you know where this is going, you don't. Just when it seems like he has her cornered, everything flips. Keep listening, because this story's about to go deeper than cheating. It's a psychological war, and the next move will change everything. There's a specific kind of dread that settles in your stomach when you realize the illusion of control was never yours to begin with. It's not fear. It's not anger. It's something worse, the sense that the enemy knew your moves before you even picked up the pieces. That was me, standing in our kitchen, holding a steaming cup of coffee with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. The call from my attorney that morning confirmed everything. "I got the missing piece," he said grimly. "She's been prepping this longer than we thought." Lauren had taken out a private consultation with a second law firm a full year ago, under a maiden alias, registered through a third-party legal shell. Their specialty? Complex divorce settlements, asset recovery, and fraud investigations. She hadn't been reacting to my moves. She'd been engineering hers. Her crypto suspicions? Played up, not feared. The concern about the account transfer? Weaponized. That vague smile over dinner, the false affection, the sudden talk of counseling, all perfectly timed to coincide with her real preparations. And the surveillance photos? She didn't just know where I'd been. She wanted me to know that she knew. Because the moment I tried to strike, she was going to flip it all. She had proof, or could fabricate enough, that I had hidden assets, acted erratically, and moved money without consent. To any court looking in from the outside, I wasn't the wronged husband. I was the unstable one, the liability, the schemer. I felt the air thicken as the walls closed in. I couldn't prove she had planned this before the affair. I couldn't prove she'd manipulated my reactions. I had scraps, hints, screenshots. Not enough to beat her. I sat in the garage that night, door shut, engine off, lights dimmed. Not crying, not yelling, just nothing. Because when someone's 10 steps ahead, when your last weapon turns out to be theirs, what's left? And then, a name drifted into my head. Frank. Her father. Old school, sharp-tongued, loyal to the bone, but above all, a man of principle. And despite being Lauren's dad, he had always treated me like a son. He was also one of the few people who still called me just to ask how I was doing. Not how we were doing. Me. I didn't even think. I called. "Hey, champ," he answered, upbeat as ever. "Everything all right?" My silence must have told him everything. "You sound like you're calling from a foxhole." "I think I am," I said quietly. I told him everything. Not every gritty detail, not the affair, not yet. Just enough. About the financial games. The surveillance. The plan that had snapped shut around me while I thought I was winning. There was silence on the line. Then a low, tired sigh. "She's really doing this," he said. It wasn't a question. I hesitated. "You knew something?" "She's been distant. To us too. Cold. Secretive." His voice hardened. "I warned her once. Told her you were a good man, and if she ever messed that up, I wouldn't stand behind her." I swallowed the lump in my throat. I don't know what to do. I do. An hour later, Frank and his wife, Marion, were sitting in my living room. No dramatics. Just quiet, concerned presence. The way people show up when they don't need proof, just conviction. "We'll help you," Marion said, taking my hand. "Whatever she's doing, she doesn't get to destroy people like this." They had access to things I didn't, family group chats, emails she thought no one paid attention to, financial discussions she'd had at holiday dinners, offhand comments that didn't seem important at the time. Frank showed me a forwarded email chain she'd sent her cousin 6 months ago. It's all about optics. He thinks he's in charge. But I'm letting him dig the hole, then I'll file and walk with everything. He'll be too stunned to fight. My lawyer says it's better if he looks unstable first. Trust me, it'll work. And she'd attached a PDF, a draft divorce filing dated 9 months before my first crypto mistake. Frank looked me in the eye. "She never thought we'd turn on her. That's your edge. Don't use it yet. Let her think she's still winning." Marion nodded. "You still have a card to play. Make it count." So that's what I did. I went back into the house, kissed my wife on the forehead, and thanked her for being patient while I sort myself out. She smiled. And I smiled too. Because now, she wasn't the only one holding secrets. Life after revelation isn't loud. It's quiet. It moves in slow inches, the subtle shift of weight in a conversation, the hesitation before a casual kiss, the moment you realize someone's warmth is a calculated performance instead of a spontaneous gesture. That's where I lived now. In the tension between silence and strategy. Lauren, to her credit, played her part beautifully. She wore the mask well, wife, companion, confidant. Our evenings were peppered with soft conversations, idle plans about the holidays, talk of redoing the guest room. She even suggested we adopt another dog, something she had once scoffed at as too domestic. I played along. I told her she was right, that the storm had passed, that I was sorry for making things hard financially, emotionally. She smiled, kissed me, told me she was proud of me for owning up. And I smiled back, tasting metal. Underneath that paper-thin veneer, every word we spoke was a move on a board neither of us dared acknowledge openly. The tension wasn't in the outbursts. It was in the restraint, like two predators circling each other while pretending to be prey. But the clock was ticking, and I was preparing. Every morning, I woke up at 5 a.m., long before Lauren stirred. I brewed coffee in silence, sat in the den with my laptop, and mapped out everything. Not just assets and liabilities, but contingencies, backup plans, alternate paths. I separated my emotional reactions from my actions, cold and methodical. Like her, I recorded a daily log of our interactions, dates, phrases, gestures. Not because I needed it for legal protection, necessarily, but because she might one day claim I was delusional, erratic, unstable. I wasn't giving her that. Frank and Marion stayed quiet, just as we agreed. They were my silent partners now. Each week, Frank checked in with a simple phrase, "Need supplies?" I'd answer with a yes or no. Supplies, in this case, being more fragments of her plan, screenshots, statements, timelines. He never asked for updates. He just trusted me to know when to play the cards. I hadn't played them yet, because it wasn't time. Lauren was still collecting rope, still tightening the noose she thought I'd hang myself with. I needed her to think I was still beneath her, still fumbling in the dark, one wrong move away from collapse. So I fumbled. Intentionally. I forgot to pay one of the credit card bills. I mixed up an insurance document and used an expired form. I scheduled a call with my financial advisor and asked a few stupid questions, just enough to give her material to gossip about. The bait worked. She started leaving her phone out again, accidentally opened to harmless messages. I knew she wanted me to see. I knew she wanted me to feel safe. It was almost insulting how predictable she had become. And yet, I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Some nights, I stared at her while she slept, the curve of her back, the faint sound of her breathing. I tried to find the woman I married somewhere in that silence. The one who used to steal the covers and laugh too hard at dumb sitcoms. The one who held my hand at funerals and whispered, "I've got you," when I was falling apart inside. But she was gone, buried beneath a plan so polished, so self-serving. I wondered if she'd been capable of love at all, or if I'd just been a convenient place to plan her ambitions. Still, I didn't hate her. Not exactly. What I felt was something colder, indifference with an edge. I was beyond rage, beyond heartbreak. What she'd taken from me was no longer the marriage, or the money, or even the betrayal. It was the illusion of shared safety, the belief that someone could be yours and still choose you when things got hard. Lauren had chosen herself, and now I was doing the same. Day by day, I closed the gaps. I changed my passwords, switched out the locks on a property she didn't know I owned, discreetly sold a vehicle and moved the funds through an asset protection firm. I had the receipts for everything, all legal, all traceable, all mine. She hadn't noticed or hadn't cared to. She thought I was broken, defeated, on my way out, which was exactly what I wanted her to think. But that didn't mean the pressure wasn't real. There were nights I questioned the endgame, wondered if I should cut and run, file quietly, make peace, walk away before the war scorched everything. But then I'd hear her phone buzz after midnight, a text she'd answer too fast, a giggle too rehearsed. And I'd remember, this wasn't about revenge. This was about clarity, truth, in its rawest, sharpest form. And when it came, when that final piece clicked into place, I wouldn't need a monologue. I'd let the silence speak for me. The plan wasn't just revenge. It was release. And like most good traps, it had to be quiet, subtle, hidden in plain sight where confidence breeds blindness. That's what I'd been building for weeks, not a blow-up, not a dramatic confrontation, but a story. One that Lauren believed she was authoring. One where I was the broken husband, barely keeping his head above water. She didn't know that I'd written my own ending long before she started hers. The final stage began 3 days before her birthday. I picked that date on purpose. She loved celebrations, craved attention, posted every card and gift to Instagram like it was a trophy. I'd already wrapped her present, a sleek, monogrammed leather portfolio. Inside, I'd placed a handwritten note and a crisp printed document, thick paper, no creases. Not legal papers. Not yet, but close enough. She wouldn't open it until the right moment. That was part of the design. The key wasn't in the gift. It was in what I'd been preparing in silence, a part of the plan I never wrote down, never discussed. Not with Frank. Not even with my lawyer. It started months ago, before I even cloned her phone. I'd been approached by a private equity firm through a colleague, interested in acquiring the back-end systems my startup had developed years ago. They were only looking at the software, not the company itself. Quiet deal, full buyout of IP, long-term licensing. The catch? It had to stay under wraps. No filings, no headlines, NDA tight. It was perfect. I'd agreed, under the name of a separate entity I'd quietly established. And once the deal was finalized, I funneled the earnings into a tiered trust, one that could be dissolved and moved with a single signature. Lauren didn't know it existed. Why would she? She still believed I was broke. That the crypto rabbit hole had swallowed everything. That I was making desperate calls to financial advisors, trying to stop the bleeding. She never once asked about the startup. She thought it was dead. That was her mistake. So when the money landed clean, legal, completely untraceable back to our marriage assets, I made one final move. I hired someone. Not a PI. Not a hacker. A forensic consultant. She specialized in one thing, mapping digital patterns. Not messages, but behavior. Logins. Patterns of access. Metadata. The stuff lawyers can use in court when intent matters more than content. She spent 2 weeks combing through Lauren's devices. I gave her everything: phone clones, iPad backups, email forwards. She gave me one thing back. A timeline. A complete, legally admissible timeline showing that Lauren had begun planning her exit strategy before her affair started. That she hadn't just fallen out of love, she had engineered a campaign to paint me as unstable, financially reckless, and emotionally erratic while she cultivated her affair as a backup plan. And with that, I had motive, intent, deceit. But I wasn't going to court. Not yet. I wanted her to feel the shift first. So I staged the reveal on her birthday. We hosted dinner at our house. Friends. Family. Her parents, who smiled politely and said nothing, as planned. I played the doting husband. Toasted her success. Gifted the portfolio. She opened it in front of everyone. Pulled out the paper. Read the note. Her smile faltered. It read, "I know everything. I've known for a long time. This isn't revenge. This is clarity. The house? Not yours. The money? Never was. The lies? Documented. But don't worry, your story won't end here. Not yet. Let's see how well you perform when you're finally off script. With all my sincerity, your husband." She went pale. Tried to laugh it off. Said it was a weird inside joke. But Frank was already watching her. Marion too. They didn't laugh. They didn't clap. They just waited. After the guests left, she cornered me in the kitchen. What the hell was that? I didn't answer. I slid a slim USB drive across the counter. What's this? The outline, I said. Of your story. The one you started. You might want to read it before the publisher gets it." She opened her mouth to yell, to threaten, but stopped. She saw something in my eyes. Finality. She didn't know if I'd filed, or when I would. She didn't know what I had, or how much of it was in motion. And that uncertainty, that gnawing, panicked absence of control, was my verdict. Not legal, not yet, but spiritual, psychological. I left her standing there, clutching the USB like it was a grenade with the pin halfway out. And for the first time since this all began, she was the one without the script. After the party, everything moved in silence. No blowout, no shouting match, just a slow, decaying unraveling of the image Lauren had so carefully maintained. Like watching a glass sculpture collapse under its own weight, one crack at a time. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. When she did, it wasn't to apologize. It was to ask questions. What do you know? What are you planning? How long have you been doing this? I never answered. I didn't need to. The USB held her story. Everything, the premeditated financial manipulation, the timing of her affair, the failed attempt to control perception. But I'd only shown her a portion. The rest remained in the vault, digital and legal, and she knew that. The power imbalance had flipped, and she hated it. I filed a week later. My attorney delivered the papers to her office during a marketing strategy meeting. Brutal, maybe. Necessary, absolutely. She built her identity on control, on being the one who saw the exit sign before anyone else smelled smoke. But now the smoke was hers, thick and suffocating, and there was no escape. She tried to play defense, cried in front of her friends, told them I was manipulative, cold, that I had snapped. They nodded politely. But they had been at the party. They'd seen the way her own parents didn't flinch. And in the court of public opinion, silence can say more than defense ever could. When the legal process began, she buckled quickly. The forensic metadata sealed it. Her own digital fingerprints laid bare the timeline, the calculated distance, the intentional deceit. Her lawyer fought back initially, but not for long. There was nothing to salvage. She walked away with what the court required, a small payout, enough to save face but not enough to claim victory. No alimony, no house, no credibility, and most importantly, no story to spin that anyone believed anymore. She moved into a one-bedroom apartment in the next city over. Daniel? He didn't last. Once the spotlight turned on, he ran. Left her with silence and an unpaid lease. I heard she changed jobs 6 months later. Started therapy. Stopped posting. As for me, I didn't rise from the ashes like some vengeful phoenix. That's not how real recovery works. I just rested. For the first time in years. The house was quiet now, but peaceful, not tense. I took down the framed photos in the hallway. Not out of bitterness. Just honesty. They weren't my life anymore. They were hers. The version she needed to maintain control. I redecorated slowly. Painted the walls and shades I actually liked. Bought a new bed. Gave the guest room an identity. No longer a holding space for, maybe someday, guests or children that never came. I kept the dog. He still waits by the door around 6 p.m. every day. Maybe part of him still thinks she'll walk through it. But he doesn't whine anymore. Just waits a little less each time. I still talk to Frank and Marion. They've never asked for the full story. I think they knew enough. They call every few weeks, just to check in. Frank sends me old movie recommendations and dad jokes I pretend not to enjoy. I laugh more now. Not the loud, performative kind. The quiet kind. The kind that comes when you're not waiting for the floor to collapse beneath you. I started consulting again. Took on projects I care about. I travel more, solo at first, then with friends. New places. New energy. I kept the monogram portfolio. It sits in my desk drawer. Not as a trophy. Not as a warning. Just as a reminder that even when someone tries to rewrite your story, you still get to choose how the final page turns. I don't hate Lauren. That surprised me. What she did was calculated, cruel, selfish. But I don't hate her. Because in trying to destroy me, she showed me the cracks in my foundation and gave me the clarity to rebuild it, this time without her shadow and the blueprint. I don't miss her. I miss who I thought she was, but not who she became. Closure didn't come with a courtroom decision, or a final argument, or even the moment I handed her that USB. It came weeks later, on a Sunday morning, drinking coffee on the porch, sunlight hitting the fence just right. And I realized I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurting anymore. I was free. So no, I didn't get revenge. I got something better. I got my life back. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.